Do you believe that humans are causing climate change? And if so, how would you balance the increasingly imminent concerns of climate change against the energy needs of the economy? And what would you be able to accomplish that would move the country toward that policy?
All right. Thanks again. Welcome back, everybody. So yes, humans are contributing to climate change. For crying out loud, it should not really be up to debate, right? And there is a lot that we can do. Again, just to get us back on track, starting with electing a Democratic majority in Congress so that we can stand up to the administration and push back against what they're trying to do. If we think about the climate and our environment as a public good that we all share and that we all depend on, a carbon tax is going to be the most sensible thing that we can do to try to have an appropriate payment for people and institutions and corporations that are harming that public good. And so that's really the way that I think we need to think about it. The other thing, though, is about the communities who are affected not just by climate change, but who are involved in the corporations and the sectors of the economy, and especially the energy sector, that are causing it. We have a terrific opportunity as Democrats to make the case, especially here in the 15th District, that given the choice between a Democrat and a Republican, there is only one of us that is going to help communities across this district make a transition, a fair and a just transition to the new economy that is coming, the new energy economy and the new information economy that's coming, a fair and a just transition. So while we have to act against climate change and we have to hold the businesses and the energy sector that's causing it to account, we are the ones who will help communities make that transition. The other side is just going to leave them hanging out to dry.
The average temperature of the Earth's surface has increased 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the late 19th century. 16 of the 17 warmest years on record have happened since 2001. And this isn't coming from me. This is coming from NASA, okay? Actual rocket scientists. And I feel pretty comfortable relying on that information. In fact, I had that conversation with a student of mine. He said, global warming's fake news, Jarvis. And I said, well, look, this is coming from NASA. And he said, well, those guys are kind of smart. Right. The reality is global climate change is real. We are the cause, and we have to do something about it. But I believe that we can do something about it in a way that promotes jobs, promotes America leading the world. And that means jumping in with both feet and investing in green energy technology. The largest solar plant in Ohio was built 8 years ago. It's in Wyandotte County, and it could support electricity for 2,000 homes for a year. That's pretty good. 8 years later, there are already 2 plants being built, one in Hardin, one in Brown County, roughly the same size, that will be able to provide electricity for homes, 20,000 homes for a year. That's a 1,000% efficiency increase in less than a decade. That's not just advancements in technology. That's a paradigm shift in human civilization, and we need to get on board. I believe that Ohio can be the center for that. We have the land, we have the infrastructure, we have the population, and when people say we are the heart of it all, born and raised Ohio, I believe that, and it's time for us to show it to the world. Invest in green energy technology.
With competition from natural gas, solar, and other forms of energy, the coal industry is on the decline. As a significant employer in southern Ohio, including some counties in this district, what is your strategy for addressing the coal industry and employment, and do you support the expanded subsidies for the coal industry? And Rob, you're first.
I do not support expanded subsidies for the coal industry operation as is, although I do support assistance for the miners, their families, and the satellite industries that depend in part on their deals with the coal companies. I was at my school's workout room one day, and this is before I decided to run for Congress. And I'm staring at this whiteboard and letting my mind wander because I don't want to exercise. And all of a sudden, I just had this series of ideas, and I started brainstorming on this whiteboard. It was like a scene from Good Will Hunting. And I started writing down all these ideas of what I thought we could do to help the good people of coal country. I even took pictures of it on my cell phone. I'll show you later if you want to see. But I call it the Coal Bridge Initiative. And it is meant to be a bridge to get the good people from coal country from the jobs of yesterday to the jobs of tomorrow. It is a combination of incentives and subsidies meant for just that purpose. I believe that coal companies who allow for their surface land to be repurposed for solar or wind farms deserve some sort of a tax break for that. I believe that we need a temporary income tax reprieve for coal miners who attend job retraining services or go back and further their education. On education, I believe that free in-state tuition for coal miners and their immediate families for a temporary time of 5 years while they make this transition. But I also believe in defending the pensions of the United Mine Workers of America through legislation that is already in Congress. Sherrod Brown sponsored the Butch-Lewis Act. Bernie Sanders has sponsored the Keep Our Pensions Promises Act. And I believe that in supporting those, we can shore up those pensions and make sure that the coal miners who put their time in, they did their job. Now we have to do our job and hold up that end of the bargain. And those are things that I will support in order to help the people of coal country transition, as I said, from yesterday to tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, little history lesson. United Mine Workers of America, secret birthplace right in New Straitsville, Perry County, Ohio.
Next question is a healthcare.
Sorry, you want me to
I'm
do it?
sorry, it's your turn and you have
No,
the
it's all right.
microphone.
All right. I'm not interested in subsidizing the shareholders and the executives of big extractive industries that come into our communities and take and leave. Like I said, I am interested in helping the workers and helping the communities make a fair and just transition to the new economy that's coming. And what is really great is that we do not have to start from scratch. So a few weeks ago, I was invited to participate in a symposium that was organized by OU down in Athens on impact investing and social entrepreneurship. And I got to tell you, it was terrific. There were people there from venture capital firms. There were people there from foundations, especially the big local foundation there, the Foundation for Appalachia in Ohio, and local entrepreneurs, all talking about how they were going to take advantage of what the Appalachian Regional Commissioner said, Appalachia being the next great investment opportunity in America. And part of that is renewable energy. Third Sun Solar, it was great meeting Jeff Greenfield that day and learning about all the work that he's doing. It was terrific sitting down the other day with David Wilhelm, who was Bill Clinton's campaign manager, by the way, and was chair of the DNC and lives right here in Bexley, and now works for a renewable energy company called Hecate. And they are bidding. They are not fooling around. They are bidding on a contract from AEP to produce 400 megawatts of solar power, and though that array is going to be built here in Ohio, and David Wilhelm, being from Athens, the reason that he works for Hecate is to make sure that those jobs and that manufacturing and that those benefits stay here. So the days of people coming in from other parts of the world and other parts of the United States and coming into our communities and taking and leaving are over. We are going to help these communities transition, and I'm really looking forward to being part of that.
Thank you. Now we go to healthcare, and Rick, it's you again.
All right.
Healthcare facilities and providers are difficult to maintain in rural areas. Does the government have a role in shoring up rural healthcare? And if so, what would you advocate?
Sure. Thanks. So again, as a public health guy, this is something that I've studied and something that I worked on when I was a grad student in North Carolina, and then afterwards when I left grad school there and went to work for the community-based public health initiative. My job was to help strengthen links between community-based organizations, local health departments, and the university. And that was 25 years ago. So I feel like I've been working on these issues for a while. Strengthening and improving the Affordable Care Act is the way to strengthen and lift up our rural hospitals. And they're huge employers in our communities. The other thing, though, that's linked up with the issue about better paying jobs is digital infrastructure. And making sure, I mean, there are a lot of communities in the 15th district that still have issues just with broadband internet access, much less building the digital infrastructure that's going to be required to help our communities get to that next level. Digital infrastructure is going to help rural hospitals a lot. So I think those two things, working on digital infrastructure plus strengthening the Affordable Care Act, are the first things that we can do to make sure that our rural hospitals are not just providing the health care that people need, but also are being the strong employers that our communities need.
Last year, we lost our hospital in our town. It was a tragedy for the people of my community who depend on local access to medical services. It was a tragedy for the roughly 200 people who lost their jobs, either full or part-time. And for me, this issue is not lost because I live in a rural part of this district. I want security for my wife and for my 3 children to know that they can have local access to medical services. What I believe happened was that Ohio Health looked at our hospital and said, we can take our resources and invest them in our more profitable institutions, other places in the county. So I understand that you cannot always fight capitalism, you can't fight the bottom line. So what I propose is this. Any agency, corporation, nonprofit that seeks to remove a facility or building from a rural community must have to pay for a portion of the cost of creating or improving rural broadband in the rural communities. I believe that rural broadband, high-speed internet, is a boon to medical infrastructure in the rural communities. Doctor's appointment by remote, faster access to much-needed prescriptions, quicker contact with specialists in the medical field. These are things that we need to support at the federal level in order to promote or at least dissuade buildings and facilities like ours from leaving our community. But I also believe in supporting legislation meant to increase the funds of groups like CODA who could expand their mass transit footprint down into the rural areas so that people without transportation, which is a big issue in rural counties in Ohio, can make it to that doctor's appointment. In fact, I discussed this with members of CODA not even 3 weeks ago. They said if the funds are there, we are willing.
Rob, you get this next question first. What are your 3 biggest priorities, and what tangible ways will this impact the district?
Single-payer health care, people over corporations, jobs for today and tomorrow. Now, I already spoke about single-payer health care a little bit, but let me also add, aside from ending job lock, we will create a business boom, because businesses will no longer have to foot the bill for those group health care plans. You want to see wages increase in Ross County or in Clinton County? Give us a single-payer health care plan. You want to see the lives of Ohioans improve? You want to see small business startups pop up like daisies? Give us a single-payer health care plan. When I talk about people over corporations, I am talking about adding specific language into the Constitution that says the Bill of Rights was wrote for you and for me, not for Walmart and Bank of America. In fact, I always use a line, I wake up every morning in the United States of America, not the United States of Bank of America. I'm sick and tired of the corporate fleecing of our government. When I talk about jobs for today and tomorrow, I'm talking about defending and embracing unions, defending and embracing public schools, and defending and investing in point-of-purchase cost subsidies for green energy technology. These are the things of the future. These are the things that keep Ohio strong and will keep America strong. Thank you.
Thanks. So I have to admit, when I started this, when I started thinking about running for this seat about a year ago, and part of that was here in this room when Indivisible 15 was getting organized, I was pretty mad at the president. And I was pretty mad at Steve for not standing up to him. But when I started getting out into the district, you know, and I think we all know this, but the district's pretty big, right? I mean, the western and southern parts of Franklin County, Madison County out to the west, going down 23 through Circleville, right to the north of Chillicothe, and scooting under Washington Courthouse and picking up all of Clinton County. And then going down 33 through Lancaster and Logan down to Athens, almost to the river, but not quite, getting Vinton and Perry and Morgan counties. There is so much that brings us together. There are so many things that we have in common, from Upper Arlington to German Village, down to MacArthur and McConnellsville and over to Wilmington. Better paying jobs, affordable health care for everyone, and real solutions to the opioid crisis. Those are the 3 kitchen table issues that I am so eager to get to Washington to work on. However, it's clear, I think, that while we expect and need our congressperson, our representative in Congress, to work every day on those kitchen table issues, I think that people also have another idea about their representative in the back of their mind. They want their representative to be looking at the bigger picture issues, the things that affect us all that maybe we don't think about every day. Our environment, international peace and security, and now, and whoever thought that we would be here, defending our country from foreign adversaries and defending our democracy from attacks by the executive. For crying out loud. I did not think that I was going to be here today standing up to folks and saying that. But that's what we're working on. So there are these 3 kitchen table issues that we need to work hard on. There are also these bigger picture issues that we need to send someone to Washington to stand up to what's going on in the chaos and the distraction. And especially because that distraction is keeping us from working on those kitchen table issues that are going to help us all. So those are the 3 big things. Thanks very much.
And Rick, you get to answer this first. What specific methods will you commit to for acquiring input from your constituents? Describe specifically how you will attain input and provide information on an ongoing basis, as well as how you will do so for major legislation that is before Congress.
All right. Thanks. So I want to get to the town hall thing, but I got to share a little story first. I have gotten some experience since January with direct constituent communication, and boy, has it been an eye-opener. So back in January, my campaign released a really fun introductory video to me and my family. My husband and I are making pancakes with our girls and talking about politics. And this media firm that I was working with in Chicago to produce this, they had this bright idea that I would put my email address on there and people could write me, you know, with comments or questions, right? And I was like, I don't know, you guys, like that, I'm promising to respond directly to all these emails. And they're like, don't worry about it. All right, so we've gotten about 800,000 views on this video. And I've gotten, Nick, maybe 1,300 emails. I'm working on it. If you have written me an email and you have not yet received a response, I'm working on it. I try to chug through a few, every day. So I get it, but it's important. I stick by my promise to respond to every email that everybody sends me. And it's given me a sense of what we have to do as representatives. That carries into town halls. I pledge to do at least one in-person town hall in every county in this district during my 2-year term as a congressperson. It would be my pleasure. Are you kidding? To go out everywhere and interact with people. That's where our energy comes from. That's where our sense of purpose comes from. I don't buy Steve's excuse. Steve Stivers is a pretty accomplished politician, and I think that he can handle any group, just fine, whether we're there to protest or whether we're there to ask questions or whatever. He just doesn't want to do it because he can't be bothered. His priority is with his donors for the Republican National Congressional Committee, and it's not with us. So that's my pledge. I'll work hard to get back to your emails, and I'll be holding a town hall in every county in my first 2 years. Thanks.
Well, I've not taken a leave of absence from my job as a teacher to campaign. So I sympathize with Rick that when you receive a lot of emails and you receive a lot of contacts, it's very difficult to get back to everyone in an expedient amount of time. So I apologize, and if you've sent me an email, bear with me, I got a lot of papers to grade. But you know, the Hocking Valley Correctional Facility, which was a minimum security prison in our community in Nelsonville, was closed down, and over 100 good-paying union jobs were lost. And Nelsonville is going to take a hit of over $300,000 just in lost utility receipts alone. Nelsonville already has 40% of its people living below the poverty level. We're 5th in the state in childhood poverty. Okay? Steve Stivers decided to come down to our community. Great. Came down to the community on a Thursday morning at 9:30, held a meeting where he talked about the future of our community and neglected to invite anyone from our community. My classroom at the time was less than 200 yards away, and he wouldn't meet with anyone that wasn't invited. You ask me what I will do. I will do the opposite of that. Representatives are meant to represent the people. If I'm elected, I am your servant. So that means your input, your will, your expertise is the fuel that I use to move the engine of change. And the minute that I forget that or abandon that, I become just like Steve. So I will commit to at least one town hall in our district every month, in addition to one virtual town hall every single week while I'm in Washington, D.C. You can count on that. I interact with people on Facebook daily, even the ones who want to say terrible things about me. I'm still out there to interact. Social media is a fantastic resource. Facebook Live is a fantastic resource. And we can cover the gap in geography by bringing people together through technology. Thank you.
And you get this question first.
Right.
How big of a problem do you think the deficit is and the debt that is growing out of it? What, if anything, should we do to bring this under control, and how would you accomplish that?
Well, I'll explain it the same way I explain it to my students. Debt is the money that you owe to someone else. And the deficit is when you're making less money than what you're spending. Okay? I don't toss and turn at night or wake up in a cold sweat thinking about our national debt. National debt is an economic indicator of overall economic health in this country. And right now, the indicator says we're not all that healthy. But I can go out and buy a treasury bond right now, and that means the United States government technically owes me money. Now, I've contributed to the national debt. But am I sabotaging America's economy? No, I'm not. In fact, 15% of all public debt owed is bonds that were bought up by the Social Security Trust. And we have to do that in order to keep Social Security solvent. So when you look at your national debt, don't think of it as your credit card debt or the money that I owe on my truck. It's not that simple. Now, deficit spending, on the other hand, is something that I'm concerned about, because a constant deficit means that we are being fiscally irresponsible. And this latest tax overhaul is the height of fiscal irresponsibility. It is going to explode our deficit by over $1 trillion. And if deficits continue, that's when eventually there comes a point where you say, we're either going to beg for money from other countries or we're going to slash government services. The GOP has decided they're going to slash government services, and that's what we have to fight against. So, yes, I believe that we can fix this problem, but we're going to have to do things like closing offshore tax loopholes like price inversion and transfer pricing. If Apple goes out and buys a small tech startup in Scotland, and then they claim that all the money they make is under Scottish tax, not federal tax from the IRS, that's a lie. And they're hiding billions and billions of dollars from us here in America because of those practices. So I would close those offshore tax loopholes in order to bring back the money so that we can get towards budget surplus and economic stability.
So, you know, what's incredible about this question is, of course, I mean, I think that if you go to Representative Stiver's website right now, you can scroll down, and one of the first things under there is his call for a balanced budget amendment. And I mean, it's shameless, right? That he can come out and he can plug this tax giveaway that's blown a hole in our budget and adding $1.5 trillion to our deficit, and yet still be calling for a balanced budget amendment. And maybe that just belies what he's really trying to do now, is now that they've given this tax giveaway, which is benefiting so few, is now they're going to come after Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid as an excuse that we have to cut those programs or reform them to pay for that giveaway. It's garbage. And people know it. So we cannot get drawn into this. Repealing that tax bill is a big thing that we have on the plate in front of us. And getting a fair and balanced tax system back in this country is what we have to do. And that's going to be a big lift. That's going to be a big lift, but it's a priority because we cannot let this be the excuse to go after Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid.
Rick, to you. Do you believe we need to strengthen the Social Security program? If so, how would you do so? If not, what is the alternative for elderly and disabled Americans?
Thanks. Thanks. So yes, I do think we need to strengthen and protect Social Security, and I think that the way that we do it is we get rid of that cap on Social Security tax that's paid up to, what is it now, about $128,000. For income above that, you're not paying Social Security. Come on. It's time to get rid of that. There's lots of discussion about the percentages and everything, but I think it's the general idea that we have to get behind, that in order to strengthen and preserve Social Security and make sure that everybody in this country has the retirement security that they deserve and that the country needs, that's the first thing that we have to do. I think that there are a lot of very straightforward solutions like that are tied down in our politics now. Let's get a Democratic majority elected to the House so that we can start moving on this.
Yes, we need to strengthen Social Security. I spent a year while I was working my way through grad school working with adults with disabilities, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, traumatic brain injury, and I've seen firsthand the amazing benefits that Social Security provides to people in need. The GOP wants us to believe that Social Security is too much of a responsibility for the United States government to handle. And it's a lie, and it's wrong. The Social Security Trustees report in 2015 and then again in 2017 says that Social Security is solvent as is, 100% benefit payout until the year 2034. But they also put in their report that there are policy options that we can take in order to shore up Social Security. As Rick said, the cap needs to be raised. Right now, I'm pretty sure it's 118,000, might be 120, but 118,000. And so essentially, if you make $5 million or $500,000, we pretend that you only make about 100 grand. And I think that's ridiculous. If you were to lift that cap, you could insure Social Security as is for at least 50 years or more. But I think there is another alternative that people need to talk more about, and it's a little revolutionary. We need to look at something called monetary reform. Dennis Kucinich was a big believer in this, and he proposed the NEAT Act in 2011 for the explicit purpose of being able to give Congress the power of coin creation, move it away from the big lenders and the big banks so that we can control the money that we spend. And if Congress controls the money that we're spending, that means the people control the money that we're spending. And I'll be honest, it's a little scary to say this out loud because I think if there's anything that was going to get me shot in an election, it would be that, moving the power away from the big banks. But I am saying that if we're not going to lift the tax cap, then we need to take a serious look at monetary reform. Thank you.